Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we have a new reading journal update where we'll first have a completely spoiler-free chat about the books I've been reading in the past few months, and then we'll set up a cover spread for the fourth quarter. If you didn't see my latest journaling video, I have some big news for you. I am around 13 and a half weeks pregnant with our first baby when this video goes up. We are very excited, but it also means that I haven't been feeling my best these past few months. So I haven't been reading as much as usual. I've just been too tired and kind of in a survival mode, trying to get as much work done as possible. But I still think I have a good amount of books to talk about in this video because everything I read were standalones. So without further introductions, let's just get started with the first book I read, which is also the one I have the most thoughts about, and this is Quicksilver. This seems to be a very polarizing book. I feel like people either give it 5 stars and absolutely love it, or they give it 1 star and don't even finish reading it. And in my opinion, this doesn't deserve either of those. So let me explain. First of all, this is your standard romantasy style book. It has a lot of cliches. It definitely doesn't have the best writing or world building, and there are some plot holes and pacing issues in my opinion. But to be fair, I think that's the case for most romantasy books I've read or attempted to read. There are quite a few romantasy books that I've actually DNF'd throughout the years. I haven't had the best luck with this genre, but surprisingly, this wasn't one of them. I'd even go as far as to say that once I started reading this, I couldn't put this down. So if we put all those quality issues aside and don't expect it to be anything lyrically outstanding, I found this to be one of the most entertaining romantasy books I read so far. There's this quality about it that almost reads like a very unhinged comedy that doesn't try to be serious all the time, and to me that worked. I think my problem with a lot of romantasy is when they are not super high quality and are also kind of boring at the same time, while also having a lot of cliches and annoying tropes and so on. In this one, there were actually some unique aspects. So, for example, everything about the Quicksilver itself was quite interesting. But personally, the winning aspect for me, which probably won't make any sense, is that both of the main characters are equally annoying. I'm a little bit tired of especially two perfect male characters in a lot of romance in general. There's just something about that my early 30s self finds so unrealistic. And oh boy, in this one, you don't get perfect. You get the most arrogant, insufferable ass. And because both of them are so annoying, it works perfectly because you're not really rooting for either of them. And it's honestly just so funny to read about their bickering. It also does get better by the end, so we kind of have this slow burn going on, so there's something to look forward to. There are also other characters in this book who are completely unhinged and one-dimensional, which can definitely be a bad thing, but for some reason I didn't mind it that much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's great writing or anything, but it does make the book entertaining. I've also read a lot of criticism about this book when it comes to the spiciness, especially that there are way too many spicy scenes. I'll say that the spicy scenes were definitely the most intense I've ever read, and there were some parts that made me physically cringe, but I'm not even gonna lie, I still liked most of it. I also don't think there were any more spice than in a lot of other famous romantasy books. Like, you need to read at least 100 pages before you even meet the main guy. So for me, something like the Blood and Ash or Flesh and Fire series are way more straight to spice than this one. What I will say is that if you don't like possessive and arrogant male characters, you will hate this, straight up. Kingfisher to me is the final boss of all, romantasy shadow daddies, so he's definitely not everyone's cup of tea. As a reference, for example, in the Throne of Glass universe, my favorite male character was Lorcan, so I definitely like the darker, brooding, less perfect type of guys in books. So if you feel the same way, you might want to give this one a go. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this book. I didn't expect to like it, to be honest. I was fully prepared to DNF, and my expectations were kinda non-existent. But I'm happy I gave it a go, because now I think I'll read the next one when it comes out. But I think that's enough about Quicksilver, so let's finally move on to the second book I read this summer, and that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I asked you guys for contemporary romance recommendations, and Emily Henry seems to be a writer that comes up a lot. I hadn't read anything from her, so I thought this was a great place to start. And in short, I really enjoyed this book. It was the perfect short little romance. This book takes inspiration from the small town romance trope where a big city person moves to a small town, meets a local, and falls in love there. But the twist here is that we are following the cold-hearted big city carrier woman, which is the one who's usually left behind in those situations. So it was an interesting twist on this very common trope. This book was definitely very funny. It made me laugh out loud multiple times, and I also cried a few times while reading it. I think the writing is good, the dialogue is hilarious, and I don't really have anything much to complain about. I maybe got a little bit of that too perfect man syndrome from this one, but it is what it is. I think most people wouldn't mind. I will say that I don't typically read contemporary romance, so this was the first one I've read in a very long time. Even though I enjoyed it, it's still not my favorite genre. I definitely prefer fantasy romance or historical romance. There's just something a little bit boring for me about our current world. When it comes to murder mysteries or thrillers, I've never had this feeling, but with romance, I still prefer a different world for some reason. Still, this was an all-around good, funny, enjoyable read with great characters, and if you like this genre and haven't read it yet for some reason, I think you'd really enjoy it. Then the last book I read these past few months is called If We Were Villains, which I kind of just stumbled upon somewhere. I think it was Elizabeth from Plant-Based Bride recommending it, and I immediately wanted to start reading it. This is quite a unique book, at least for me. It's kind of a murder mystery, but in a dark academia setting where we follow a group of 7 young adults studying in this very elite art university, focusing on Shakespearean theater. I don't know much about Shakespeare beyond, the most famous plays, so I felt like I was learning a lot while reading, and it didn't make it any less enjoyable for me. So this really is a story about greed, young ambition and arrogance, even toxic addiction and romance to some extent, and it was just a fascinating read. All of the characters feel very real and have their unique qualities, and there's this sense of impending doom and human darkness in the background. For some reason, this reminded me a little bit of the movie Black Swan, where everything just spirals out of control in the name of artistic ambition. So yeah, I can't say I've read anything like this before. It had a lot of potential to be a 10 out of 10 book for me, but for some reason it didn't quite get there. It was definitely a great read, and I think I gave it the highest score this time, but it still didn't capture my attention the way a 9 or 10 out of 10 book usually does for me. I found a lot of pictures for this book, and I felt like a dramatic book like this needed a dramatic layout. I've talked in previous videos about how I've been trying to go for more minimal setups this year in my reading journal, but we are making an exception here and going full maximalist on this spread. I actually love how this turned out. I just love the colors and the dark academia vibes, and I think these white boxes stand out enough from the rest of the spread so it doesn't look too messy. I used these large letter stickers for the title, which are from my own shop. I released these larger versions of the alphabet stickers with my new launch, but of course you could always just write the title on a white or black paper and cut it out. By the way, I know I haven't been talking about the decorations much in this video, but everything I'm using is linked and listed in the video description, so you can find everything from there. But that's all the books I read in the past few months. Only 3 this time, but it is what it is. I'm pretty sure I can't meet my 20 book goal this year either, which I'm a little bit bummed about. But reading is a hobby I don't like to put pressure on, so I know I shouldn't feel bad about it. The book I'm currently reading is The Golem and the Genie, which has been on my TBR for years at this point, and I've just barely started it. It seems very interesting and the writing is beautiful so far. However, I am kind of regretting my choice of starting it now because we are finally in the fall spooky season and there are so many thrillers, murder mysteries, and even slight horror books I've been saving for this time of the year. So I might put The Golem and the Genie aside for a little bit longer and instead pick up something I'm super excited about right now, because the last thing I want is to fall into a reading slump at this time of the year. Before we get to my reading ideas list, let's first set up the 4th quarter cover spread. I'm gonna use some products from my latest shop collection called The Dancing Leaves. This is a very Japanese fall inspired collection, and I'm combining some of these products with a few bigger pictures I printed online. By the way, I often get questions about this, but I print all my pictures on regular white sticker paper, so it's a little easier since I don't need to glue everything. And the book covers are also printed on the same sticker paper, and I've made a step-by-step guide of how I do it in a previous video, so I'll link that one in the description as well. I've tried to keep these cover spreads pretty minimal again. They don't really serve a big purpose in my journal, but I like to write down a small list of books I'm currently interested in, and I think it still serves as a nice divider between the different parts of the year. I know many people do monthly covers in their reading journals, but as you can see, I don't read enough books to do that. For me, this quarterly approach has worked very well so far. Anyway, as I mentioned, I have a lot of books I'm really eager to read this season. The first one I wrote down after The Golem and the Genie, which I'm still not sure about, is Black Wicket, which is a new book by Bea Northwick. She's the author of The Cruel Dark, which ended up being my favorite book from last year, so I've been eagerly waiting for this new release. It just launched in early September, I think. This seems to be a gothic, slightly horror story with some fantasy and romance, so it sounds right up my alley. And then there's another slightly horror-leaning book I kind of want to try called The Sundown Motel. This is apparently a paranormal horror thriller. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit scared, but at the same time, very intrigued, so I think I'll at least give it a go. I don't typically read much horror, especially the paranormal kind, because I'm a literal baby, but I kind of want to give this genre a chance. Next, we have two murder mysteries. The first one is called The Puppet Show, which seems very interesting. It has a mismatched duo solving a case, which I always love, and I haven't read anything from this author before. I'd love to find a new favorite murder mystery series. Then the next one I wrote down is Crooked House by Agatha Christie. I've actually read and watched a lot of Agatha Christie when I was younger, and she's written some of my favorite murder mysteries. But for some reason, this one never ended up on my radar. So I kind of want to give her another go after many years. Then lastly, if I feel like I want to take a break from all the thrillers, I listed Blood Over Brighthaven, which probably has been on my TBR every time this year. It's a fantasy book I've heard great things about, and I already own it, so I'll definitely read it at some point. And then the last one I listed is Rain and Ruin, which was recommended in a romantasy recommendations video I watched. Apparently this is one of the better quality ones, and I've never heard of it before. So I'm very interested to see if this would be one of the hidden gems of this genre. But that's probably it for this time. We'll see how many books I end up reading towards the end of the year. I'll make one final book roundup and flip through video by the end of the year or in early January. I'm still not sure if I'll continue my reading journal next year. It honestly doesn't seem like something I have time for with the baby coming and all of that. So we'll see how I feel about it later. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed watching today's video and maybe got some new journaling or reading inspiration. As always, please leave your book recommendations or any thoughts about books you've read recently in the comment section. It's literally my favorite thing to read through your comments on these videos. If you want to follow me on Goodreads, where I list all the books I talk about, you can find a link to my profile in the description as well. If this was your first time around here and you'd like to stay tuned for more, definitely consider subscribing. But I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye!